Welcome back to geometry. Today we're going to cover statements. You might think you already know what a statement is from your language arts class, but in geometry, statements are a bit different. A statement is a sentence that can be stated as true or false, and this true or false is called its truth value. So its truth value can only have two possibilities, either true or false. So an example of a statement would be something like, "It is raining outside." This is a statement because it can be proved either true or false. For the purposes of this lesson, let's just say that it is a true statement. It is raining outside. I can see it with my eyes, so it can be stated as true or false. Equivalent statements are statements that have the same truth value. So let's say another statement is, "I have a dog as a pet," If that's also true, that means these are equivalent statements. But let's say I don't have a dog, but I said the statement, that would mean its truth value is false, so these are not equivalent statements. These are not equivalent. Now, what can we do with statements? So sort of like how we can add stuff and subtract stuff in math, specifically algebra, we can do something called conjunction to statements. Again, language arts class, flashback, you realize that conjunction is something where you're joining two sentences together. It's pretty similar. You have to use the word and, though. In English, there are other conjunctions like or, but, and even because it's a different type of conjunction, but still. And is the only conjunction in geometry. And the way you would use a conjunction is you would say the first statement and the second statement. For example, "It is raining outside and I have a dog." That would be the conjunction. Now, while the conjunction seems to be pretty obvious because and is a conjunction in English, and you're using the word and in a conjunction in geometry, it's pretty intuitive. There's another operation, sort of, that you can do with geometry, statements in geometry. It's called the disjunction. And it's very similar to the conjunction, except it uses the word or. So or is a conjunction in English, but forget about English for now. We're going to be talking about the conjunction in geometry, which has to do with the word and. Disjunction is the word or. So you would say, "It is raining outside," or "I have a dog." Now, you wouldn't really say that as an English statement. That would just probably confuse the person you're talking to. Like, one of the things that you're saying is true, but in geometry, that's a perfectly valid statement. These statements really don't have to do with geometry, but I'm just giving you real-world examples. And then in actual geometry, and later in the lessons, when we do theorems and stuff, I'll talk about conjunctions and disjunctions and give you actually geometry examples. Now, what are the truth values of conjunctions and disjunctions? A conjunction is only true when both statements are true. And we'll be talking more about this in our truth tables and truth values lesson in the future. But for now, just remember, for a conjunction to be true, both have to be true. Basically, conjunction means both. They both have to be true. And disjunction means at least one. So both can be true, then the disjunction would also be true, but at least one. It doesn't require both to be true. At least one. Both versus at least one. And it sort of makes an intuitive sense. For you to say that something is true, both parts of it must be true if it's a conjunction. If you're joining together with an and, that means both parts are true. If you're using a disjunction, it's one or the other. In this case, it can also be both if it wants to be. Now, there's one more thing we can do with statements, and it's a negation. A negation is basically turning it into the opposite truth value. So what you can do for a statement like "it is raining outside," you can say "it is not raining outside." Negation mostly uses the word not, which is how it negates it. So you say "it is not raining outside," or "I do not have a dog." Now in English, sometimes you need that auxiliary verb like do, that sort of confuses everything, but usually you have to have the word not somewhere if you're doing a negation, unless the original statement contains a not. For example, I can have the original statement as "I do not have a dog," then the negation would be "I do have a dog," or "I have a dog," like the sentence we have right here. So those are the three main things we can do with statements. we're going to do a part 2 of this video in the future, and that'll be focused on conditional statements. So it won't really be called statements part 2, but it'll be called conditional statements, and has to do a lot with a specific type of statements. So I'll see you in that video. I know this is a relatively short video because I wanted to split the statements lesson into 2 so that it's easier to digest. Statements are one of the hardest things. This entire unit is probably one of the hardest things in geometry because it doesn't really have to do a lot with math. Anyway, I'll see you next time.